in this video, we will be showing off the new item sets coming with the Gold Road chapter. And no, Asylum Inferno is not being meta again. I just have these out to showcase some other stuff. Okay, so we're going to go over the Overland sets, the crafted sets, and then finally we'll go over the Mythics and the trial sets coming out with the Gold Road chapter, or update 42. I'm just going to give my thoughts on these. We haven't tested any of these yet. I am actually quite interested in testing a couple of the crafted sets because they seem pretty good, actually. Kind of reminds me of the Blackwood patch. Alright, so the Overland sets. First one is the Macabre Vintage Bow, or I guess weapon. But it's actually just the set here itself, 2 to 5 piece bonuses. You get the weapon and spell damage. On the 5th piece bonus, you get the 145 weapon and spell damage. And on the actual 5th piece bonus tooltip, it says, when you kill a monster, they burst with blood magic, dealing 50% of their max health to enemies within 6 meters as bleed damage, up to 24,096 bleed damage. It's insane. This damage cannot crit or critically strike. This effect can occur once every half a second. This is, I think, honestly, is set to definitely try out for trash, no matter what. I'm quite interested in trying it, especially in the new trial. So I'll get back to you guys on it. But I look at this, I'm just like, hey, it's kind of like Azure Blight for groups that kill things faster in trash, whereas groups that don't kill as fast in trash can use Azure Blight and get away with getting more benefits out of Azure Blight. But this is more like, you guys are going fast, so you will go even faster by having AoE bleed damage based on the percentage of health or max health of the things you kill. So I can see this being a thing, and I can see this definitely speeding up, in my opinion, some of the older trials with the trash, especially the Crag Wardens. So it's something to definitely keep an eye on for next patch, and I'll keep an eye on it for the update 42 PTS cycle. We also do have the Alien Refuge set. Gives you max stamina, max health, and blocking an attack reduces your damage taken by 11% for 3 seconds. So it doesn't really show me a cooldown on the tooltip, so it does need some more testing. I'll probably test that as well. But blocking an attack, reducing your damage taken by 11% for 3 seconds. If it doesn't have a cooldown, this is definitely something like a starter set, or even like something you could combine with a mitigation set for certain very niche scenarios. So I don't know. Definitely something to test. We have the Symmetry of the Wield set. We have the 124 weapon and spell damage. We have the critical chance on the 4-piece bonus with the 2 to 3 piece bonuses, giving that weapon and spell damage. The 5-piece bonus, however, is going to be 200% stats effect chance while your health is above 50%, and 10% healing done while your health is 50% or less. So if you guys recall, in update 41, they did tone down the status effect chances, particularly from Charge, the weapon trait. So this could be an alternative to gaining that status effect chance back. However, I don't think it's truly necessary, given the fact that we might see some more healthier alternatives instead of a 5-piece set with scribing or potentially certain classes like DK. So again, an interesting set, much more interesting than the usual crafted sets we get that turn out to be not so great. So I'm hoping that they don't nerf these right away in week 2 or something, and that we get to test them a bit more and give a bit more feedback. Now let's move on to the trial sets. Actually, let's go with the crafted sets first. So the crafted sets are 3 craftable sets. The sets you can find in the Westfield zone. You can attune your crafting stations to them and craft them in your guild hall or your house if you want to go that route. Or you have to find those 3 locations to craft these item sets at their original set locations. So we have Highland Sentinel Amulet, showing the Highland Sentinel set. We have the 2 to 4 piece bonus of 657 critical chance, which is really good actually for PvE. But even for PvP, it could be good depending on your Mundustone. I know some setups use Shadow, these days, so that's something to consider. The 5th piece bonus for Highland Sentinel says, while in combat, each second you stand still grants you a stack of Sentinel's Eye every 1 second, up to 10 stacks. So you have to stand still for 10 seconds for the full 10 stacks. Otherwise, you will start removing half of your stacks of Sentinel's Eye every second you move. So if you have, I guess, 4 Sentinel's Eye stacks and you move for 1 second, that's going to take you down to 2 Sentinel's Eye stacks. But if you do manage to get those 10 stacks and keep them, each stack will increase your critical chance by 468, up to 4,680 critical chance total, which is actually pretty good. So what were we talking about? All right, so this is another set I look at, and I'm just like, this is actually pretty damn good. And something also worth testing out for a lot of stationary fights, for sure. And I'll do so on the PTS, but that's a lot of crit. This is a lot of crit that I feel like would be worth investigating for trials or even dummy parsing, because you don't really move much. But I feel like this is also the bane of a lot of players where people do the DPS shuffle. So, okay, so the next set I want to talk about where it's crafted is Terriker's Strike. We have the 129 weapon and spell damage for 2 to 4 piece bonuses. The 5th piece bonus says, dealing damage with a fully charged heavy attack grants you Major Berserk for 4 seconds, increasing your damage done by 10%. This effect can occur once every 1 second. So, I feel like this is geared towards the lightning staff heavy attack kind of setups. They took quite a bit of power away from the Oaken Soul heavy attack setups, kind of a couple times. And nowadays it's like, well, it's not as good as it used to be. The Major Berserk could maybe put some power back into those kinds of setups. And again, as I keep continuing to say, this bears some testing. We're gonna definitely test some things here and there. The Dreads of War set is another crafted set. We have max stamina, max magicka, 129 weapon and spell damage, and the 5th piece bonus says your light and fully charged heavy attacks gain 100% status effect chance. And this sounds familiar. The status effect is based on the damage type of your weapon, and that's just kind of alluding to the weapon passives of like dual wield and the destruction staff and so forth. So again, another interesting set that's coming on the heels of the nerfed status effect chances. Something also testing, but I feel like with the other 2 to 4 piece bonuses, I'm not sure if it's gonna be so great. I don't know if nowadays large bulk of your heavy attacks damage comes from necessarily just a status effect, right? Like burning or whatever, especially after they did tone down some of the higher performing status effects to be more in line with the more buffed, less used status effects from update 41. So I don't know. I don't really see this as being as attractive as the other 2 crafted sets, but again, we'll test it. All right, so trial sets at last. Let's talk about these before we talk about the mythics. We have the heavy armor set, or the tank set, from the trial Lucent Citadel. These are the perfected versions, which means the secondary 5-piece bonus, like adding 1,206 max health, will not be on the non-perfected versions. Okay, so Lucent Echoes for the tank set. 4% healing taken, minor Aegis, max health for the 4 to 5-piece bonus, and the actual 5-piece tooltip says, while you have more than 50% health, increase the critical damage and healing of your group members by 5%. Group members wearing Lucent Echoes cannot benefit from this effect. While you have 50% or less health, reduce your damage taken from monsters by 20%. So, on several fronts, I find this to be a very interesting and simple tank set. The problem with a lot of the tank sets from some of the trials in the past has been they're either too complicated or have very niche usage, depending on the proc conditions. And also, they're just like not very useful in terms of buffing the group. But this, the first iteration I saw on the playtest in the Amsterdam ESO event, said while you have more than 50% health, you increase the critical chance of your group members by like 750 or something, which is great, which is the huge thing. But they changed it from critical rating to critical damage and critical healing. Now, before you write this off as completely useless, I would say just on the surface kind of examination, you could potentially discard Aggressive Warhorn because you're getting close to the 20% mark from that horn. And this is going to be a 100% uptime rather than a 70 to 86 or something like that percent uptime on horn itself, depending on the fight or trial or group. So that's certainly an option, like a consistent 15% over a sport, like over a 80% or 90% uptime on 20%. So that's something that you can definitely check out. I think it definitely will depend on the group, and also it'll depend on the content or the level experience level of the tank. That 20% mitigation on top of the minor ages, which is not like huge, will definitely, I think, help in a lot of boss fights that some tanks do struggle with in terms of survival, especially if their healers are not coordinating well with them, or if the group overall is not as experienced. So I think for sure this is a set that tanks could definitely eye. It's not like the first iteration of Gallonway where it's like, oh yeah, this is useless, whatever, forget about it. This is something where it's like you have to kind of think about, okay, I might use it, I might not. Now, the reason why I think they moved away from critical rating, too strong. So, yeah, something to think about. So, the light trial sets, the Morris Scribe Thesis, and the No Arca, or Silvers of the No Arca. Sorry, not Silvers of No Arca. The Zoran's Masterpiece. They're also interesting, kind of in the way that the Morris Scribe is interesting in terms of its critical chance gain. So, for example, the 2-piece bonus gives you crit. The 3-piece bonus gives you Minor Slayer. It's pretty standard. The 4-piece bonus gives you Max Magicka, which I not a big fan of for a DPS set. It could have been like weapon and spell damage or something like that, or another crit chance. But the 5th piece bonus, the secondary bonus, is crit chance, and the actual 5th piece bonus says increases critical chance by 128 for every major buff active on you, up to 1536 critical chance, which definitely looks very attractive, especially when you start scrolling through in your mind how many major buffs a DPS can get. I don't know if that full 1536 can be reached all the time, but it depends. Increases your critical damage done by 1% for every minor buff active on you. And that's pretty cool that they added that secondary bonus, but the critical damage I feel like is also but if you are wearing this in conjunction with the Lucent Echo set in your group, I definitely don't think you need Horn. I think the only consideration for Horn at that point would be the max stamina and max magic you get, which is a slight DPS gain, but at the same time, consistent critical damage is also a factor. It's interesting. I would like to see them tweak the 4-piece bonus and maybe look at the stacking critical chance being a bit more generous, particularly for the majority of groups, right? That would struggle in some uptimes. As for the Zoran's Perfected set, I think it's absolute trash. Like, I'm not gonna hold back here. Max Magicka, Minor Aegis, Magic Recovery. This is obviously a support set, right? For the healer or whatever. It gives you Max Magicka on the secondary 5-piece bonus. The actual bonus, tooltip bonus says, increases your Max Magicka and Max Stamina by 1667 for you and up to 11 other group members within 28 meters of you. This bonus persists through death. I'm gonna tell you why this is trash. There are much better support sets out there, just straight up, for healers, for tanks, for anybody really looking to run a support damage set or a support set strictly. I feel like this set was a result of people, maybe the itemization department, whatever, looking at Lucent Echoes and whatever Lucent Echoes and say, okay, so they got the 50% consistent critical damage, right? And that might persuade the players to go off of Horn or discard Horn. But then we need to give them something back from not using Horn, and that's the 10% additional maximum stamina magic you get from casting Horn. And I'm just like, why? This is a very useless set to me. for a trial set, for a healer, for a PV raid healer set, or even just dungeon healer set, 1667 max mag and stamina. Who cares? So I hope they update this set to be much stronger. I would rather use Navintas or Gossamer, or like what's that healer set everybody hates, where it's like a overhealing set. I don't know. I don't remember how I don't remember that set name. That's how bad it was. But I'd rather use those over this. This seems very useless. And for the medium armor set for stamina base DPS or medium armor DPS, we do have the critical chance, Minor Slayer, and the 4-piece bonus of critical chance, along with the secondary tooltip of weapon and spell damage. Collabor's favorite? Yeah, something like that. I don't know. It was something else with ice. It's an ice theme set for the healing set. Whatever. Now, this is a bit better than, in terms of the secondary 5-piece bonus, than more Scribe to me. The 5-piece bonus is also pretty interesting because it's definitely a single target set. Dealing critical damage gives you a stack of silver for 10 seconds. You can only gain 1 stack of silver every half a second. So ideally, it could be, 1.5 seconds or maybe 3 seconds, depending on your crit RNG, where you get that full 3 stacks of silver. And when you gain those 3 stacks, the stacks are consumed, and the crystals are a single target proc damage at the last enemy you damaged. And thanks for resubbing for 41 months. God damn. Shout out to Zero. And this damage scales off of your weapon or spell damage. I'm not wearing anything right now on my character. I don't have any CP in. And it says dealing 3,401 physical damage. It could go up. It will go up, obviously. And so I'm interested to test this in both a raid scenario and a dummy scenario. But I think it is probably a decent single target damage set that you could eye for your DPS setup. And once you launch the crystals, however, you cannot gain silver for 5 seconds. That's like the only thing kind of putting me off a little bit. I guess that kind of really depends on your crit RNG. I feel like I'd still would use this, or not, sorry, I would still use Coral over this. So this could be a secondary set more so than the primary set, depending on the stats. Again, haven't tested. We'll test it. All right. Now, finally, last but not least, we have the Mythics. We have the 3 Mythics. So we'll start with the non-combat Mythic, or the some people have been calling it the roleplay Mythic. Although I feel like that label's a bit insulting here. But it's a non-combat Mythic. A lot of people have been asking for non-combat Mythics in the sense that maybe a Mythic that boosts your crafting or helps you get more, stuff from harvesting nodes or whatever. So this is something that I feel like has been requested by a lot of people. And what it does is, when you're crouched, you can see witness NPCs or just NPCs and guards through walls. And if you successfully pickpocket a witness or guard NPC, it applies a debuff called Distracted to them for 10 seconds, which stuns them. And during that 10-second time frame, you can just, I guess, do whatever. Like, you can just commit crimes. It also decreases your detection radius and stealth by 30 meters against distracted targets. And I like the tooltip. It's like, you are beautiful, shadowed, beautiful and hidden. They cannot see you. Darkness clings like lovers. So it's pretty cool that they are kind of gearing towards non-combat Mythics. I feel like they could have gone a step further for a more wider usage Mythic. I don't think everybody will use this. Definitely a niche Mythic, even for a more niche category. So I want to see in the future, hopefully, like crafting or gathering, or even like something interesting to do with other systems of the game, like the mount system, even. I don't know. So yeah, we do have the next Mythic, the Rorken Steam Guards. This is the heavy hands or gauntlets. Activating block while in combat grants you Steam Guardian buff for half a second, just half a second. Now, that might not seem like a lot, but in PvP, half a second could save your life, reducing your damage taken by almost 100%, 99%. This effect can occur once every 10 seconds. However, you can reduce the effective cooldown of 10 seconds, or 9.5 seconds, by another 5 seconds by blocking an attack while that Steam Guardian is active, which is gonna happen. It's gonna happen 100% of the time. You will get that 5 second reduction. So you're gonna have a 4.5 second cooldown, essentially. And this could potentially be a very, very tanky addition for PvPers. So, something to think about. And as for PvE, I don't know if it would help that much in PvE for a lot of fights. But again, player testable, as they love saying. Okay, the necklace mythic. It's not a Velothi or Mage's Amulet or whatever, or some of the other mythics we've seen in the past. It's called the Saint and the Seducer. It looks pretty cool. The icon looks pretty cool, at least. It says, this is gonna be a long one, and I think I'm gonna actually go for this mythic. I think this is the only mythic that makes me go, I'm definitely getting it. Check this out. While in combat, you gain 1 of 5 random major buffs, which changes every 10 seconds. If this sounds familiar, this is like Daedric Trickery, the craftable set. And I had a lot of fun with that set too, for sure, way back then. Enemies within 12 meters of you gain 1 of 5 random minor debuffs, depending on which buff you have. And for example, if you get the major Berserk buff randomly in rotation, you get you get to inflict minor maim on everybody around you within 12 meters of you. Okay, and that's actually pretty nice. Major Resolve, and you inflict minor breach on everyone around you. Major Force, and you apply minor brittle to everybody around you. Major Evasion, well, you get minor vuln on everyone around you for next 10 seconds. And Major Courage, well, inflicts minor cowardice on everybody around you. I think this is something I will definitely use for PvP, just to have fun with it, for sure. But yeah, that's it. That's all the new item sets. Let me know what you guys think about them. I definitely think they did a lot better, a lot better with the crafted sets. A couple of the Overland sets, at least 1 or 2 of the Mythics. I'm a little kind of on the fence about the medium armor DPS set so far, and definitely I think the support light set from the trial is really bad. The tank set could be really interesting in terms of group composition or group itemization plus skill usage. But yeah, looks to be a decent haul, at least in terms of power gain for players for update 42.